Pre-COVID, just 8 kids went to Lulla's regularly. By June 2020, 72 kids had returned.
We know that our community needed us, so I went out and knocked on doors. I was up front and honest with them all. I said, come back while it's free and we'll work through your individual circumstances and situations. We'll learn together what the childcare subsidy looks like for you.
Courtney's family members not only run this facility but also go to it, so she says it's money well spent.
I love her coming here. Every morning she gets picked up, she hops straight on the bus. And then when she comes home, she's happy. The happiest kid ever, yeah.
They moved from Melbourne to Shepparton last year.
We felt free. It's way better here than the city.
But Courtney says she doesn't have the right qualifications or a driver's licence, so she's struggling to find work. An activity test is used to calculate parents' subsidy, depending on their amount of paid or volunteer work. They must spend at least 8 hours each fortnight actively looking to get up to 36 hours of subsidised care. For low-income families, they can have 24 hours at a reduced rate without meeting that test.
If we're looking at closing the gap in areas, we need to make sure that children can access services more than one day at a subsidised rate. So, you know, our stay-at-home mums, they're still really important. They need a break.
Miranda Edwards, who's also a SNAKE board member, wants the activity test scrapped altogether. There's an additional childcare subsidy available for those experiencing temporary financial hardship or caring for a child who is vulnerable or at risk of harm, abuse or neglect. But Miranda says the stigma attached to that may mean some won't apply.
Pre-COVID as well, with the concerns of the childcare subsidy, we were hearing about families struggling to feed their kids.
So this centre provides transport to pick up the kids, as well as meals twice a week for families.
It's hard for me to buy nappies sometimes, and I don't have enough for food, and I have to ask family members for money.
For Courtney, free childcare, or at least greater subsidised care, would make all the difference.
I just hope she has a good future and goes to school and doesn't go through the struggles that all single mothers go through.
Catherine, this is a really important issue. I mean, what a stark thing. Here you are trying in the Coalition of Peaks to increase the rate of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids assessed as developmentally on track. Early childhood education is critical to that. All you got to do is make it free and look what happened. So what does that tell us about what should we do in a sustainable way to create those opportunities for these wonderful kids?
Look, absolutely. The first one is scrap that activity test. It absolutely discriminates and it misses the mark on things like, you know, families that have the most barriers, they just need those barriers removed, right? Just take them away, but take away the barrier to access, because it's one thing to be able to look for work and find work, but, you know, a lot of these families where you've got multiple complex needs, even just getting out of bed in the morning is very, very difficult to do. So there needs to be another way of working with our families, and Lulla's is a fantastic example of that. It works, as you would have heard in that story, it works from the inside out. So come on in, what is it that you need, and let's work on it with you. And because it misses things like the current system is geared to middle class families, those families with 2 incomes, good jobs, and of course, and in terms of the funding schedules, it really it looks after those private led childcare centres better than it does those community-led centres, particularly Aboriginal-led centres, which come at it from a different focus, and it misses really critical barriers. Like I know we heard in the budget, which reminds me of how much I actually miss working as a journalist. Sometimes I was listening to that budget thinking, geez, this is an exciting conversation. But one of the things in it, of course, is digital inclusion for us as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. There is a massive, massive gap in digital inclusion and in digital poverty. So that's not only in being able to access the internet, but that's in also digital literacy, and then being able to actually navigate yourself around once you're in it. So it's sort of like it's barrier after barrier after barrier, and yet the government talks all the time and about how it believes in quality early childhood education. It believes in evidence-based approaches, but the evidence shows 30 hours a week will make a difference to our children, those most vulnerable children. And yet, as you've heard, it's 1 day a week that you can get that. That is not 30 hours. It does not equate to 30 hours. So, and alongside that, we also know that there is a need to develop the Aboriginal early childcare workforce. So it's layer after layer. It is, look, get rid of the activity test, invest in your community-led childcare services like Lulla's, and start helping us grow our own workforce so that we know that when we do get into those centres, we are comfortable and we're safe, and start looking from the inside out. Because again, as you would have heard from Lulla's, what our national conversations on this and our consultations are showing is that families do not want to put up their hands for help if they think it will put them in the pipeline for child protection.
So they're fearful that if they say, I want that extra funding because I'm struggling, they might have their kids taken away.
Yep.
That's the bottom line there?
Look, it's worse than that. It's not an early intervention support. It's an intervention once you are in serious trouble. So it's worse than that. If you say that you need that help, you are already in serious, serious trouble.
Okay. And what you're saying, because when you say people that struggle to get out of bed, what you're saying is bring Aboriginal families into community childcare to help families as well as meeting those goals. You can't think about it as separating, okay, mum or dad needs to study, mum or dad needs to go to work, and therefore there's childcare. You have to join it all up to get the outcomes.
Essentially, and from the inside out. So it's not a matter of linking all the services around and dropping them down, because that's not a self-determined approach. It's about enabling the family, removing those barriers and making the families active participants and the children active participants in this growth.